Welcome to Senior Strategies. I am your host, Amy Decker, Director of Client Services for Senior Helpers. We are so glad that you were able to join us today for lively conversations with guests that can offer you the tools, strategies, and support so that you can successfully stay on your journey as a caregiver. We hope that you enjoy yourself and find just what you needed to get you through today. Hi, welcome to the next episode of Senior Strategies. I am so excited that we have a completely different topic today, and it's just about dogs and what they do to make a difference in people's lives of all ages and the benefits of using service dogs. And Alan Levine has been doing this for some time. The name of his company is Certified Therapy Dog, Inc., and he's going to talk about what he does and the benefits of what these animals can do for people of all ages that are dealing with all sorts of issues or stresses. So welcome to the show, Alan. We're happy to have you.
Amy, thanks. I appreciate being invited. It's an honor to be here.
So tell us a little bit how you got into this. It's such a specialty thing. I mean, it's just such a specialty thing to get in with, not only training dogs, but training them to be a therapy dog, or to and talk about the places where you bring them and where you're most popular, some of your biggest challenges.
Okay, thank you. Well, it all started about 15 years ago. As you say, it's a very unusual journey to take and path to even begin. It started about 15 years ago when I was fortunate or unfortunate enough to be diagnosed with having only 2 months to live. And then through an evolution of good events, my life was saved, and through that, it made me search for what my purpose was. Why was I given that second chance?
Wow.
And until I got my own dog and then discovered this wonderful, wonderful woman who took her own dog to hospitals, no one ever knew what this thing called therapy dogs was. And she and I started working together. She trained me to train dogs for therapy dog work. Then, unfortunately, she passed away, and I carried the torch, created a fairly sizable organization now called Certified Therapy Dog Incorporated. And we've grown to become one of the southeast of the country's largest therapy dog organizations.
Wow.
We are fortunate enough to be recommended by the American Kennel Club. If anybody goes on AKC.org and searches for therapy dogs, they'll find us listed there as a recommended organization, which is a fabulous endorsement to have.
That's a big deal. That's a big deal.
It really is. It really is. It gives us national recognition. We're contacted every week at least 2 or 3 times by people across the country looking for either the dog program for training or visits from us. We're a nonprofit, so that puts us in good stead. We're fully insured when we go to different places. And we're devoted to training dogs and their handlers, people who own their own dogs, to safely operate and bring kindness, empathy, and joy to people who need it, whether they're suffering from situations in life or emotional distress. Just the touch of a dog can really brighten someone's day.
And you've seen people of all walks of life, all ages, all situations that they're going through. I think you've got some really interesting stories of where you bring these dogs. I think it's great, but go ahead.
There's really no subclassifications that we focus on. It's cradle to grave. There's no socioeconomic distinctions. Tragedy can hit anybody. And we're there. And, I have a couple of examples to go through, but the whole process feels so good when you help people. A long time ago, I realized that the path to my own happiness was to work on giving happiness to others. And therapy dog work really gives you that opportunity. I often have to tell the people that I work with, it feels so good. You have to battle the notion of if you're doing this selfishly.
Right.
But you're only getting 1% of it. Right. Yeah. So we're all volunteers. No one gets paid. No one gets nothing. We do not accept any money for any visits. We'll, of course, accept donations, but we never ask to get paid, which puts us apart from virtually every other therapy dog organization that operates more as a business. Perfect. We never want to position ourselves as a money-driven organization.
Right.
Like I say, it's purely volunteer. No one gets paid for anything. And the work that some of the people put in is just mind-boggling. It's a full-time job with and it's sometimes thankless, but it's always not monetarily rewarded.
Mhm.
And if I may, let me take a moment here to shout out for our director of operations. Her name is Christine Stritch, and she keeps the whole thing running like a machine. She's
That's what you
unbelievable how much
need,
time. Yeah,
right?
yeah, she's such a valuable friend and partner in this operation.
Aw.
Um, some of the places we go to, and then we can start about how the program operates. We are the organization that populates both the Palm Beach County and the Broward County courthouses, both on the juvenile side as well as through special victims when we're called upon to sit with people who need a little bit more comfort to be able to
Mhm.
divulge what really happened to them.
Right.
Uh, one of
Or they
our
have to relive a traumatic experience,
Yeah,
probably.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. A lot of times the children go through all of the resources that the courthouse can offer, but they still don't reveal some of the trauma that happens to them at their home until they're on the floor lying with a dog, petting
Aw.
it, kind of depersonalizing their experience,
Mhm.
and then first revealing to the judge what happened. I'll spare you the graphic details because they're all sad stories.
I'm sure.
But they typically end, with rehoming the children and putting them on a track for a better life. But so we're in Broward County and Palm Beach County courthouses. We do teenage diversion programs there. We sit with the juveniles who have to testify against their parents. More recently, we sat in the Broward County courthouse during the trial of the Parkland shooter, whose name I
Mm.
don't want to reveal to give him any
Right.
more notoriety. We
Right.
sat with the parents who were victims of those tragedies through the loss of
Wow.
children, and comforted them every single day. And it was very,
Oh,
very traumatic. And many people
wow.
afterwards, and not to blow my own horn, but many people who worked with our dogs said, "You saved our lives today," and that's
Oh,
just so rewarding. Even the
it's
courthouse
so
personnel,
rewarding. And do
so
you go
appreciate.
with a gaggle of dogs and people help you, or you have people that are within your organization that have a dog that join you at these events?
These are people that have joined our organization with their own dog,
Hmm.
have come through our training program, which I'll get
Gotcha.
to shortly, have graduated the training program, have gone through the internship process with us because safety is paramount. We
Of
have to know
course.
that both the dogs and the people know how to
Mhm.
operate in various situations. And then we rely and call upon them. We have a monthly call to action newsletter of all the entire list of activities that we have available. And in addition to the courthouse assignments, we are actually the organization that Trustbridge Hospice uses to
Oh,
train any of the dogs that come through their organization, people who want
great.
to work with their dogs and have.
Yeah.
We're honored that Trustbridge selected us as their training program
Oh,
and
yeah.
coordination program
Right.
for that. We operate in the Veterans Administration Hospital, Veterans Affairs hospitals throughout Palm Beach County, especially in November during Veterans Day week. We're
Mhm.
there every single day. I mean, it's a true honor to be there and work with these, amazing people who sacrifice so much.
I can't
Um,
even imagine.
Oh, it's just so heartwarming.
Yeah.
The feeling that you get just drives you to want to do more.
Right.
We are called upon in virtually every school in Palm Beach and Broward County to come in and sit with the children during either reading programs, or many times a lot of the schools have autism clusters where they want
Oh,
us to come in, and we put out the alerts every month with the schedule, and people sign up to volunteer for
oh,
these
that's great.
opportunities. We work with roughly 20 libraries throughout the county, and we have a reading program where children are invited to come in and read to the dogs. Uh,
Aw.
it's called the ARF program, Animal
Oh,
Reading
that's
Programs.
cute.
Yeah. And they're scheduled in 15-minute increments to come in and read to the dogs. And it just creates a fun thing for the
Hmm.
children to associate with reading rather
Right.
than sit there staring at a screen or going like this with a video game for
True.
4 hours after school. So
Right.
I don't even care if they hold the book upside down and make up the story, as long as they associate something nice with
Yes.
having the book
And
in
they're
their hand.
interacting with the dog and themselves. And I think one of the beauties of an animal is they don't judge. They're not
Yeah.
perceiving something wrong. They're not questioning what you have on, what you're wearing, what your hair looks like. A dog is just so, they're in love with whoever you're with as long as you're giving them attention. And I think for some kids, they just need to be accepted and heard even if it's just from a dog, where they know the dog
Sure,
has just accepted them. I think that's
sure,
so
sure.
beautiful.
Yeah, we don't care if they make mistakes. We're not judgmental. We're not
Right,
going, no, 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 no. We're not applying
right.
anything negative to the scenario that would make the
Hmm.
kid, unwilling to do it again and keep trying. So it's tremendously valuable. We're in most of the major hospitals throughout the counties.
Oh,
We focus on the children's hospitals. We go in and we visit all the rooms. And quite honestly, it takes us more time to get past the nurses' stations
I
with,
bet.
with the dogs
Yeah.
than to get to the children's room.
Aw.
We donate various dolls. We have dolls made up. Actually, I have one right here. We have dolls made up that we
Oh,
give to the children
cute.
with our logo on it. We have these made up.
That's adorable.
And it actually goes with a book that we wrote about therapy dogs, and it's all about
Aw.
kindness. It's a children's reader, and it teaches children kindness to one another. So,
Oh, that's cute. Now,
it's
can
so
you get that
absent.
on your website too?
Not on our website. This is available on Amazon. This is called Sophie the Amazing Therapy Dog.
Oh, that is
Passion for
adorable.
compassion. And so
Cute.
that helps children, get familiar with the notion of be kind to others as a way of
Right.
making yourself very
Hmm.
happy, not really just wanting from others. So we're in most major hospitals. We work with the Kids Cancer Foundation. We are at dozens and dozens of assisted living facilities.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I
and
see therapy dogs coming through all the time. We're in so many, just with senior helpers, we're in so many of the buildings very often. Memory care really benefits from it, but I do
oh my
see them all
goodness.
over the place.
So many times the dogs trigger memories that are in there
Oh, yeah.
about
Oh,
happier
absolutely.
times for these
Yes.
people. We've had
Yes.
so many instances where people were, sitting there kind of in their own little world, shall we say, and then they
Right.
come to the dog, and then all of a sudden the conversation, oh my goodness, I had a Cocker Spaniel when I
Right.
was growing up, or,
Or they
things
start
like that.
singing to them, or we've had where there have been nonverbals that just start singing or talking to the animal because it
Yeah,
just wakes something up inside of them. That's so
yeah.
sweet.
Yeah, yeah. So that and then we go to a lot of the children's shelters, children who
Oh,
are displaced from the homes or rehomed. We work with people in the Department of Children's and Families, and we go to these places, whether they're rehomed there or in foster care. There's so many stories about how the dogs just brought these children out of horrible
oh,
situations. We had a child in the courthouse one time, no names, of course, but it was a 5-year-old little girl whose foster parents, she was in foster home already, said that the child was able to speak but nonverbal for 2 years.
wow.
And we sat with her during the testimony and just update with the magistrates. And she was on the floor playing with a therapy dog for about 45 minutes during her judicial review.
Mhm.
And on the way out, mommy picked her up, put her back over the shoulder, and on the way out of the courtroom, the child said, "Bye bye, doggy." It was the first 2 words she'd uttered in 2 years. And everybody was like, "Oh
Oh,
my God,
oh,
what just
not a dry eye in
happened?"
the house, I
Oh
bet.
man, you could hear the tears hit the carpet. It was just
Oh,
unbelievable.
oh my
Um,
goodness.
so that was one of the better resulting stories. And
Yeah,
there are just so many of the testimony that, as I said before, first gets revealed from a
yeah,
child who's hugging, almost squeezing a dog.
right, right.
Finally volunteers that mommy and daddy beat the what out of her.
Yeah, yeah,
It results in a better life for the child. It's
right,
unfortunate for this
right.
child, and we're
But I
there
like
for.
your phrase that you said you work from birth to grave. So whatever, however old they are in between, anybody can benefit from that. Now, obviously, there are certain people that are afraid of dogs. So
Mhm.
you have to be like a prerequisite, I'm sure, to find out if that person is good with a dog. But I think for the most part, animals bring such tenderness. It's so heartwarming. And like I said, because we work so much with the seniors, just going in, whether it's while they're in hospice or just like you say, sitting in memory care, kind of in their own world, that there's just something about bringing a dog in there for them to visit. They just love it. They just
Oh
love
my
it.
goodness. Yeah,
So,
it's so true. I used to do visits at hospice too. We have about roughly 250 people have come through our organization in the last since 2019.
wow.
About a little more than 100 are active on a daily basis. But I tend to open up the programs and then populate them with the other volunteers once I
Mm-hmm.
get familiar with being able to tell them all about it. And when we opened up one of the hospice units a number of years ago, this was before COVID, started getting familiar with one of the residents there, and it's not going to be a long-term relationship.
Right.
So the
Right.
first week, this woman, a small, tiny little thing in bed, you almost didn't know anybody was there. She
Aw.
got all the people around the bedside and held court with us. She wanted to
Aw.
share her life stories. So that was week one. Week two, her health had deteriorated
Mhm.
rapidly, and we were there to be with her for various things. And on the way there for week three, I got a call saying, "You don't have to come." She was already in her agonal breathing and not expected to live through the day. But the answer was, "But that's why we come."
Right.
And we got there, and I have had a rather fairly large dog operating at that time. And we get there, and my dog put her chin on the woman's hand, and the woman took her
Oh.
last breath and passed away.
Oh, I'm gonna
And
cry.
it was just such an honor to be there to send that woman off. Now, whether or not the dog did it, who knows? But it was certainly one way of looking at the situation. So,
Oh, that is so sweet.
yeah, she just released the woman to
That was
go
it.
to the next.
Oh my goodness. So,
Yeah, yeah.
so what about if, so people are listening, they have a dog out there, they're interested in becoming part of your program. What do they need to do?
Okay. Well, they'll call me. Our number and all the contact information is on the website. My phone number is always available and open for it to receive calls, as well as there is a contact us page on the website, certifiedtherapydog.com.
Mhm.
We'll talk. We'll give an initial telephone conversation to see just roughly what the dog is about. During that conversation, we'll ask questions about more for what the dog doesn't do. Is it overly barky? Does it bite a lot? Does it jump up on you? Now,
Mhm.
all dogs, all people come with their own issues.
Right, right.
So,
You're right.
if they're not extensive, we can
Right.
work and train those out.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure there's a good dog, first of all.
Mhm.
And then it starts with a very quick in-person evaluation, so we can go hands-on. And then, presuming all that goes well, we have a 10-week training program. There are classes once a week. Currently, we're in um, Boca Del Rey, Boynton Beach, Wellington, Lake Worth, and Coral Springs and Parkland running classes.
Wow.
Most are in the evening, some are on Saturday mornings, depending upon the location. So
Mhm.
we'll set up the classes. There are 10 weeks of classes. The first 6 weeks are conducted indoors at an assisted living facility, most typically.
Good.
And this gives us startup interaction with equipment and the people
Mhm.
that they're going to be interacting with in many instances. And week 7 is actually instructed by a veterinarian. And that's all about first aid for the dogs, Heimlich maneuvers for the dogs, CPR for the dogs, and just general care and maintenance. Because safety for
Good.
the dog, the person, and who we visit is just paramount over everything.
Absolutely.
And those indoor training activities really focus on obedience, control. Of course, it's against the backdrop of safety and things like that.
Mhm.
Then the last 3 lessons are typically, well, they're always done outdoors. And that classroom is typically at Meisner Park down in
Oh.
Boca,
Mhm.
which is a fabulous, fabulous
Oh,
place
it
to take
is.
them.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
we've been doing those classes there for 5 years. All the store owners, they welcome the dogs. The restaurant
Aw.
allow us to go through the tables. There's a lovely candy shop down there. I tell people, bring your credit card because you're going to
Yeah.
spend money in
You're
some of
gonna
these
need
stores.
it.
Yeah. The 6 weeks and the 3 weeks outdoors all includes the curriculum that allows you to test for the different AKC obedience levels, should those be of interest to you.
Mhm.
We're all incorporated in it. But again, there's safety, obedience, things like that. So it's 10 weeks of classes. And then they're followed by 5 required supervised visits that we set up. And those are focused more on teaching the handler, the owner, the
Mhm.
higher end of the leash typically,
Right.
the safety protocols that we insist upon that are very tight and very restrictive. Again, all for the name of making sure everybody leaves there in
Of
one piece.
course. Right.
We don't allow people to put the dogs on beds or laps. Other facilities might. Um, Sometimes we don't encourage it, but if you have a medium-sized dog and you're a senior type of person, we'll allow you to bring the dog in a stroller.
Oh, cute.
It's kind of funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's in a children's hospital, an assisted living facility. The kids, the dog wants to be high enough to be petted. You have to
Right.
interact with the dog.
So even
So
with
those
the
are
kids, you don't let the dog get on the bed with the children, like in children's
never,
hospital? Okay.
never.
That
They're
probably makes sense. I mean, that makes
well,
sense just for health factors.
Well, health factors as well as, the child can be covered in a blanket, but if a dog has nails on the way
Oh,
up or the way
right,
down and the arm is exposed, or
right.
there's an IV line or
True,
electrodes coming in, we
true.
try to be very preemptive with
Mm-hmm,
safety. Even
mm-hmm.
even when they're sitting on a wheelchair, dogs can scratch, and if
Right,
someone's on blood thinners with thin skin, oh my God, we have to get ahead of that. So either the
exactly.
dog is allowed to be presented in the person's arms,
Mm-hmm.
or again, if it's too big for an older person or a frail person to hold them, we'll allow them to bring it in a wheelchair, not a wheelchair, a stroller.
Stroller, yeah.
Or in the case of the bigger dogs, there are other safety protocols where they're easily reachable, but we have to make sure that they're not going to close, a distance that we require to be maintained. But they're
Mm-hmm.
pettable.
Yeah.
But everything's control. Everything's absolute control. So we have the 10 weeks of classes, the 5 internships. And then once the people pass, they're considered a certified therapy dog with our organization, and they receive the monthly newsletter that's at this point 7 pages long, populated with places
Aw,
to visit.
yeah. And they
Like
get a little vest.
they get a bandana.
Oh, cute.
We made a conscious decision to not give vests because that was a shell between the dog and the person, and we want that
I see.
tactile
Yeah, because we can't
interaction
pet. Oh, that
is so
makes sense.
important.
Right.
When a little kid, an 8-year-old little kid, is rolling around on the floor with the dog, I don't want a barrier between the dog.
Right. Oh, that was a
Um,
great thought.
so they get a bandana. Sometimes it's very interesting because we always maintain, again, control and safety. So we'll encourage the handlers to bring a second leash that they'll clip onto the dog's harness and allow the child to pretend and imagine that they're walking the dog when in
Nice.
fact the handler always has full control of the dog.
Right, right.
So we provide a shirt, a bandana, a badge, things like
I
that.
was gonna say they get some kind of a badge or something that they either
Oh,
wear on a lanyard or okay.
absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely. It's very official.
good.
And then we leave it up to the people to populate the visits. Now, the person I mentioned before, Christine, manages hundreds of visits every month.
Sounds like it for all the places that you go to.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Well, with hundreds of dogs and hundreds of
Yeah.
places to go, the coordination process for her is a nightmare.
And
But
you probably have to coordinate certain dogs with certain personalities too.
yes,
So you got to be
yes,
careful who's getting what. That's got to
very
be a
much
big
so.
part of it.
Very much
Wow.
so. And in all of the visits, we have site supervisors who give me a report or Christina a report that this dog did this person didn't follow this safety rule. So we'll always try and button things up and,
Hmm.
and keep tight controls of it.
Oh,
We're,
sure.
we're
You'd
really
have to.
very strict when it comes to that.
Right.
So that's basically the process.
Wow. And you've been doing this for how long?
I've been doing this for almost 15 years with various
Wow.
dogs. Certified therapy dog has been in existence since 2019, just prior to COVID hitting.
Hmm.
So the doors shut on where we could visit, but we still conducted classes, mostly outdoors and respecting safety distances, so
Hmm.
that when the doors reopened, however slowly they did,
Right.
we had a good bullpen of dogs at the ready. And different organizations, hospitals, for example, have tougher safety protocols
I'm
than
sure. Yeah.
assisted living facility.
Hmm.
Our members know they have to be fingerprinted anytime they're going to be dealing with children for background checks. Various organizations require TB tests or blood draws to see past immunological
Hmm.
issues,
Hmm.
things like that. And we're all open to it. That's one of the reasons why I'll spearhead opening of most of the locations to get a sense of just what the requirements are, so then I can communicate
Right.
it. And
And
we
I
are
like
selective.
and I like that your story began with something that you personally dealt with that then turned you into that direction. And I do find with most of my guests, regardless of what they do or even what I do, is something usually happens in your life that all of a sudden you are so happy to have that second chance that your emotions get involved and you realize that doing a pay it forward like what you're doing too, your compassion, your empathy is now super heightened. And so for you to choose this path, I think that's what's the beauty of it is when people turn to a profession because of what they just dealt with. And you're the perfect example of that.
Well, thanks. I'm very fortunate. First of
Yes.
all, I found this world, or perhaps even this world discovered me. I'm really not sure how that truly operated.
Yeah.
And I'm very fortunate also. I was previously in the corporate world until shortly before I created this certified therapy dog. And it was difficult because you deal with difficult people who you have to deal with.
Right.
And getting out of bed in the morning was a chore, just to have to
Yeah.
put on your armor and deal
It's
with
just
that.
thankless. It's thankless.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You're only as good as the last thing you messed up with
Right.
everything. And it was very inhuman. It really was. It was very ego driven, and it wasn't me.
Mhm.
And then fortunately, I was able to find this crazy little thing that we do. And now I'm out of bed at 5 o'clock in the morning, just looking for
Can't
messages,
wait.
things.
Right.
And it's just wonderful. And again, I'm very fortunate to be surrounded by hundreds of kind people
Mhm.
who are cut from the same cloth,
Yes.
not driven by ego, but driven by kindness and
Mhm.
empathy and wanting to give back to others. And the feedback we get from those who we do this for, and the feedback we all give each other,
Right.
it's just very compelling and propelling.
And it's a
To
group of people that aren't working for a paycheck. They're not working for a paycheck. They're working to fulfill somebody's life, to make a better time for them, to give them a moment to make them smile. So they're not out going, well, I'm going to be getting this check, and because they're not getting that. They're out to bring a purpose to that person for the day. And I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, like I said, there are organizations that do it for money, which means that they're kind of not really doing it for the right reasons. But
Right.
you said the magic word. We get paid in the currency of smiles, and
Right.
that's just
Right.
what we do.
I think
So
it's great.
and
I
it
think it's
makes you get up
great. And
every
I,
day.
looking over your website, I was impressed with everything that was on your website. I think it's very informative. I clicked on every single button just to see who you are and what you do. And I encourage everybody to go to your website and just look
Thank
at it.
you.
If you're interested in becoming or getting a dog as a therapy dog, or you had mentioned too, possibly if someone just has a dog that's out of control, that could use a little bit of direction.
Yeah, that as well. Some people do come through our program just for the obedience training.
Mhm.
We were very fortunate also. Many people are familiar with the Farmer's Dog Food Company.
Yes.
They actually hired an author to interview me, and there's an
Aw.
article about our training techniques on their website. It's a little difficult to get through their website, but if people Google Farmer's Dog Food Therapy Dog article, the first hit
Wow.
is
I'll
that
do
article.
that. Mm-hmm.
It's all about the establishing a relationship with your dog. One of the first things I say in our orientation classes, you no longer have a dog. You
Right.
have a furry 3-year-old little child who just came out of its room dressed funny that day. Not a convenient piece of furniture. It's
Mhm.
something that requires interaction with you every single moment throughout the day. And the
Right.
more you communicate with it, the more it gets closer to you.
Right.
And it almost requires no training because you become one with that animal
Mhm.
and it follows you and it knows your gestures and things like that.
Right. Which I
So
think is very different than if they were with like the police department and their canine department. Some of them don't even want the dog to interact and to become close with, because that dog is to do a job, and that's all that dog is doing is their job. And so even when they don't want them petting them, don't they're out to be a canine cop, where you're out to make somebody feel better, warm their heart. It's just, I think it's different. And I don't know if all police departments do that, but I do know some of them really don't want the dogs interacting and becoming part of the family, because that dog is doing a job.
yeah, they're typically working dogs. They don't want to
Yeah.
be petted.
Right.
And they're trained for specific purposes. It
Mm-hmm.
was so funny. When we would go to the courthouse, the first dog that I used to work with, a big golden doodle, her name is Sophie. She's the focus of the book.
Uh-huh.
She's a pretty little girl. She really is. She's a pretty big girl.
Uh-huh.
And when she would walk by the bomb sniffing dogs at the
Oh,
courthouse, they would go crazy,
I
saying, I mean,
bet.
thinking what you'd think they would be thinking. But
How cute.
we actually did certify some of Palm Beach Sheriff's Office.
Oh,
They have a new team of therapy dogs that they have a handful
nice.
of therapy dogs that they bring to special events. But so that was an honor for us too to be selected to try to certify one or two of those dogs.
I think it's great. I think your story is great. Like I said, I love your website. I'm happy that I got to meet you as a friend
Well,
to
thank
find
you.
out just exactly what you do, Alan, because I think, like you said, you cover all aspects of life, you cover all ages. We focus on seniors, but we often have guests on here as well that are a caregiver for a younger child, or so it's all different ages that we're focusing on with this
Oh,
show.
sure, sure. And that's actually one of the challenges that we present. The concept of therapy dogs has really exploded over the last couple of years. When we first started and wanted to do visits, we would get someone on the phone at, more often than not, an assisted living facility and say, "Hi, it's Alan from Certified Therapy Dog." What's a therapy dog?
Oh, right.
And now we never have to pick up the phone for outgoing calls because the phone is ringing off the hook. We'd like your
Constantly.
therapy dogs at this X, Y, and Z. And
Right.
of course, that's going to present a capacity problem. So the challenge we have is kind of feeding the beast at this point with enlisting, more and more people who volunteers through the program. It's a very narrow audience of people who have the time and emotional mindset to want to do this, but the demand is just ever expanding.
And it has to be a giant dedication too. I mean, just to be able to keep that dog constantly training, making sure he's doing what he's supposed to do. What I find humor in is looking at TikTok or different things that a lot of people are using now other sorts of animals as a therapy animal. So there's all sorts of things that people are trying to get on airplanes. And I think one time it was a peacock. Other times it's been an iguana. That's supposed to be their therapy pet. But
right.
yeah.
Well, they have to draw the distinction between a therapy dog, which needs to be invited to a place to bring happiness and joy, versus a service dog who's for the benefit of somebody who in need physically, emotionally, or psychologically.
True.
And there have been instances where people put us and our training program down as having trained their service dog just to get on an airplane. But they should know that
completely
anytime
different.
they do that, we get a call from an organization that the airlines and the Department of Transportation hire to verify that. And we never, ever mislead them to believe that that dog was trained as a service dog.
Right, because service dogs can be trained to generate whether or not the person's going to have a seizure, or their sugar levels are dropping, or they're going to pass out. That's a service dog. A therapy dog is just to bring warmth. The other dogs are actually trained, I think, for specific problems, health problems that person has.
Yes. And so we'll do that on a lower level. Scent detection for an impending diabetic attack or ketosis is fairly easy to train toward. Deaf response, so that the dog comes and touches if the phone rings or the doorbell rings. Those are fairly straightforward. We won't go so far as seeing eye dogs or anything like that. Ability assistance dogs, that's very specialized, and we do work with very specific people, highly trained to do that. So if that is a need, we can easily funnel you to the right resources for that.
Nice. Well, you have certainly, it takes a village, and you have certainly put this big, wonderful village together, Alan, and have really made a difference in so many people's lives, that I'm just proud to have you on the program. I'm proud to hear more about what you do. And, later on down the road, I'd like to have you on as a guest again, so that we can just hear any of the latest and greatest that have come up, or some good stories that you can share with us. I think what you do is great. You should be really commended.
It's been an honor. Thank you. A real pleasure. And believe me, if I started getting into the stories, I think you would need a series of podcasts to go through.
Well, we might just do that. Because I think people benefit from personal stories. I think once they hear it, then it really puts the whole picture together. So maybe we'll have you on again, and you can just give us some personal stories and how, therapy dogs can make such a difference.
It would be a pleasure.
Great. It was great having you. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Amy. I appreciate it. Looking forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you for watching our show. We hope that you found an answer to a question or a resource that can assist you. Our goal is to keep all of you that are caregivers informed, refreshed, and heard. We're here for you. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us with any questions. We have all the resources that you'll need. Please follow us on our Facebook and Instagram pages for the up-and-coming shows and events and support groups. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for your support.